Hey, Alex, a lawyer and a financial advisor walk into a bar.
Oh, then what happens, Dave?
Well, the question then comes out around, what are the pitfalls for starting and growing a business?
Oh, pitfalls. I reckon the big one is, do you even want to start a business?
Well,
That's the thing that jumps out to me. Do you want to be in your own business? Do you know what's involved? Is it a good idea?
it always seems like a good idea at the start, doesn't it? It's like, oh, I
Yeah,
can do
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Certainly, in my experience, running a business has been a lot different than I expected. It's been harder in a lot of ways. It's been more rewarding in a lot of ways. I think it's probably like having a baby.
Yep.
You're never quite ready, and it always turns out to
It's
be a
never
bit
a good
different than what
time.
yeah, that's right. So I think the big one that just jumps out to me when you say that is do I really want to be in business? Do I know what's involved, and is that right for my life and where I am now?
Yep. Yep.
You know?
Yeah,
Um,
I do, because there's always that balance with people that would turn around and say, "Yeah, but I'm doing this job, and I can see the revenue I'm making in the role that I do. I can generate the leads, and I can execute the work, and I
mm-hmm,
know what I'm doing. What I'm giving it to someone else the whole time.
mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, sure.
I could do that myself. But I think
Yeah,
there are a lot of circumstances where people don't always understand what's actually required. It's easy sometimes in some respects to actually get the work, but then you've got to do all the other stuff,
yep,
compliance, tax, accountant, the other advisors that you may have around you in growing your business, HR, all of those issues. People go, oh, technology, that's
yeah,
always a beauty.
yeah,
Can't I
yeah. It's
just,
sort of got to
especially
be
if you've come from
expert.
a big place, well,
Yeah,
can't I just ring the IT department?
no, that's you.
Yeah, that I'll be getting my best man onto that. That would be me.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that's right. It's a really good point that you've got a whole bunch of different functions that
Yep,
you need to do, and you need to do them all reasonably well, or your
yep,
business is going to cark it. If you've got a great operations but no marketing, well, you're stuffed. But if you're marketing and getting all this work in, but you can't do it, or you can't
yep,
do it at the right quality, if
yep,
all your people get upset and leave, all of those, you need each of those kind of ingredients into your business, and they all need to be at least okay. Otherwise, your business will collapse. It was a real surprise to me how many different things especially early on, and obviously it's an evolution. I think then you get to the stage where your business is actually doing well, and but then to go to the next level, you need to actually have a different set of skills than you did at the first to get to
yep,
where you are.
yep.
Often doing it all yourself is the first step, and that you might be say good at, but then not doing it all yourself is the next step, and that's a different challenge and requires different skills.
Because also then there's a difference between growing and scaling your business.
Oh
So
yeah,
you can grow your
yeah,
business, so you've
yeah,
started it and you're growing it,
yeah,
but then you still need to, yes, you can be growing it, but again, you've got to make sure that there's a consistency in your delivery.
yeah,
You know where the moving parts are.
yeah,
It's great to say I've sold all this stuff, but if your production people or who's delivering it don't know that you've sold that amount, and do you have capacity
yeah,
to deliver on what you've promised,
yeah. See,
it becomes a really tough one.
I hear all about this scaling business, and I don't think I understand what they're on about. I thought scaling and growing were basically the same thing. When you say,
Well,
so what's the difference? What's
so
scaling?
you can
Everyone's on this about scaling.
okay, so you can turn around and go,
Yeah,
right, I can grow my business. I can drag in more clients.
yeah,
No problem. You've got that down pat. But the problem is, how do you scale that? That yes,
yeah,
you can bring that in because that's what you're good at doing. But if you've got to bring it in, so you're wearing the hat of business development, and then you've got to come back in. Now you've got to write out all the legal work.
yeah,
So all of a sudden, you don't have the ability to multiply the delivery of the work, which is scaling it, which is technology, or
yeah,
it could be extra bums on seats. But it's also,
yeah.
it's like, I've got the work in, but is it to the quality that you're
Right.
communicating to your end receiver of the delivery of the work that you're doing?
Yep.
But is it driven in the way that you would? Would you want to sign your name off on the quality? That's the
Right.
scale component. How do I
Right.
scale my business so that I can go from 1 to 5 quite quickly?
Right.
Now, you might
And
grow in
keep
that.
the same quality.
Yeah, you're correct. So it might be in that initial stage, you need the growth to get the
Yep.
income or the revenue to go to the
Yep.
next stage. But then it
Yep.
becomes a point that there's a bottleneck, which a lot
Yep.
of the time is the owner.
Is the owner. Yeah, sure.
It
Sure.
just is because,
Yeah.
if you've started as a single person and you might have your first 10 staff on quite quickly, but ultimately people are still pushing up.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Alex, can you make this decision? Alex, can you do this?
Yes.
And all of a sudden it's like, hang on, that's where you've grown the business, but
Yes.
you're not scaling it over and above that to give you the
Yes.
ability that you.
I know in the case of law firms or professional services firms, often they approach that by putting on more partners. You have more financial advisors, more accountants, more lawyers or whatever, and the partner's kind of the head of the pyramid. They have more pyramids, if you like.
Yep.
I mean, is that scaling?
Well, see, to me,
probably
that's
not.
more growth.
Yeah, I see.
Because you can be there are some people that are fantastic rainmakers.
Yeah.
And from that terminology, I mean, they go out and find the work. They rattle the cage and they get the work in. They can deliver it, but there are some people that don't like to go out and chase the business.
There's a lot of them.
Ask them to do the strategy and to write the documentation or do whatever. They love it.
Yeah.
So if you can feed them the work, but then again, it cascades down. How can you produce the work? Because in the end, you don't want to be working 24/7. It's just not. It's not viable. It's not healthy. It's not an approach. Which then says you've grown your business from a start to growth to a point, and then you hit a ceiling. The next stage is scaling, so you can go over and above, over that position.
And then
that's one of the biggest things.
Yeah, so we were talking about pitfalls of starting and growing a business. One of them is growing it to a big enough stage that you can scale. Is that the point?
Well, growing it to a point where you know that you've got the resources to then bring on the next person.
Yeah,
and that's probably and look, the comment that you made, scaling, growing, I always thought that was the same thing, and I think that's a big, that's probably quite common. People go, no, I'll just keep growing.
Yeah,
but how? Like, who's going to deliver on the work? That's where sometimes growth for growth's sake is not always a good thing in your business.
Yeah,
because that is one of the pitfalls. All of a sudden, you're growing. Yeah, but are you getting the margin from the delivery of the work?
Yeah,
or because there's rework costs. You deliver it and it's not the right quality, so someone's got to redo it again. Yeah. So all of a sudden, you can't charge a client anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, we were acting for a builder for a long time, and they designed beautiful projects, and but they couldn't deliver on them. And what they did, well, in fact, they could deliver on them, but on a small scale, and they managed to win all this work because of their beautiful projects, and then they were having to really borrow from Peter to pay Paul in order to keep these projects on foot, and they just had too many projects at once, and they collapsed. Whereas if they'd stayed smaller, if they'd refused some of those new jobs and just focused on finishing the jobs they had, they wouldn't have collapsed. So they went into liquidation, and it was all very bad. And it was really because of either the strength of their marketing or the weakness of their operations, or probably both. That they, successfully won all this work and then went out of business. And similarly,
that's a good distinction between growth and scale.
Yeah.
So they could grow it because of the quality when they were small, but they hadn't scaled their business to take on the extra work. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were residential builders, so they got into trouble for taking money from clients outside of that. There's regulated, they're allowed to take a 5% deposit and so on. According to a schedule, and they took more because they needed the cash to continue with the project, which was naughty, and then they got into trouble, and that was the end of it.
So this is, again, when you start to talk about, the discussion for today, pitfalls for starting and growing a business.
Yeah.
As you said, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. All of a sudden, it's like, but I need to move resources over to that job to get that job done, which is then upsetting someone else.
Yeah.
So this is, it's that slow progress, but it's also that balance for people to understand that sometimes you don't need to be the expert in every area.
Yeah.
Seek advice from other areas. And that's not just professional services. That might be, I can produce a particular component, but I outsource to a third party that may package it all together for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It could be a gift box. I'm a good marketing business. I bring in, people want Christmas hampers. I pull all the product together, wrap it all up, but I then send that out to a particular packaging business that then packages it all up and delivers it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the most profitable way of doing it.
Any yeah, this is where we kind of come back to. How do you start to scale? It's like, well, I scale because I do what I'm really good at, but I outsource the other components that we can do, but I don't have the capacity to move up and down.
Yeah,
I think one of the things, the really interesting pitfall that a lot of people probably don't acknowledge or always realise, it's actually quite lonely when you start a business.
Yeah, I hear that.
Because you've come from a bigger corporate area or a business where there's people around, and all of a sudden you go, no, I want to start my own business. Yes. And all of a sudden you're in an office, or you might be working from home, and the family's around, but there's a different sort of connection, and sometimes those issues and challenges that you have are spinning in your head, and there's not always the person to talk to that sort of says, oh, yeah, I've got these three different ideas in my head. Which way do you think I should go? They don't. So I've found over the years it can be quite lonely sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. The point I wanted to make is sort of a related one, which is that I thought when going into business, the challenges would be financial. I thought it's about cash flow. It's about, how hard I'm prepared to work in order to build the business and get the revenue and so on. Yep. And I need to do a cash flow forecast and all that. But actually, I think the challenges are personal. The challenges are, are you prepared to run a business for the lonely existence that it is? And it's true. I think, especially if you're a single owner, even if you're a partnership, sometimes that creates other problems. Maybe we'll talk about that separately. When you're in partnership with a bunch of people, it can create other problems. But I think particularly a sole owner business, it's a sort of a lonely thing. Even if you've got a lot of staff, owning and working in a business are different things. And I think it's not for everyone. And I think sometimes people get into it accidentally and or without really thinking it through. And then I think that the loneliness or the personal sacrifices that are required to make it successful really can ruin people's lives, or can really take away from the quality of your life, when maybe you're better off being an employee.
And part of that, I think, is ego. I started, it's my business. I know what I'm doing. I'm like, no, delegate. You pass something else off to someone. No, it's only, I'm the only one. And so part of it, this is where I think we go back to that original comment around growing and scaling. Scaling gives you the capacity to park your ego a bit and go, there's lots of people around that can do what I do. They might get to the destination a bit differently. Yeah. But we still get the same outcome. Yeah. So leave it to the side. Because ultimately it all comes back to time is our scarcest resource. Yes. So you're building a business to give you the capacity to do what you want to do with your time. Now, you may choose to continue to work in the business, or you may choose, like you like to do regularly, is take all these holidays and junkets all around the world.
Business services, mate. Business holiday.
Research.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's this, and this is where we get back into this time management, which again is, as we start to grow and scale a business, one of the pitfalls that comes into that is that people don't take time off. Yeah. But that's such a good way of putting it, that you say, well, ultimately you might choose to spend your time in the business, but you don't want to have to. And I mean, so many owners, most of my clients would be in that category. They have to, or they don't know what else to do with their time except work in the business, and they feel trapped even by their own business, and they actually don't have much else going on in their life because perhaps they haven't created the space for it. Yep. Or to find those interests outside of the business. Yeah. Because you can go back and starting any business. It was a necessity. I had to start the business because I need to make some money. I had to feed the family and do all this other stuff. And so it just became so habitual that you just got onto that kind of flywheel, and you just kind of just kept going, and the business was growing, and and it's like, no, hang on, just take a step back. But a lot of people really struggle to do that. Like, no, because if I take my hands off it, everything's going to fall apart. Which comes into the regular holidays that you like to take.
Oh, he's really getting into me, gee.
Well, no, but we should. And look, I'm guilty of it. There's absolutely an issue that, there's times throughout the year that you should. And this is what we're trying to really encourage more and more people to do, actually unplug from the business, start at a week, and then build it to 2 weeks where you have no contact with the business. Yeah, right. And to see what happens with the business if you're not there, because then you can come back in and fix the things that might have fallen over or had an issue for, whilst you're not there. So therefore the business starts to serve you than the other way around.
Yeah. I love that idea, and I totally agree. And that's why I'm going on holidays, purely to improve my business.
Exactly.
Not because, right. Yeah. But I totally agree. For me, there's really, in my kind of holidays, there's been 3 stages. The first stage was when I went on holiday, the business just struggled.
Yep.
And then the second stage, which was, maybe before COVID, I noticed when I went on holidays, but I had to work every day. And I only worked an hour, and I thought that was really good. I get up in the morning, work for an hour, and then I had to make those key decisions because I was still the bottleneck.
Yep.
But the latest trip, which you're digging into me about, was even more successful. The latest trip I virtually did. I worked once in 3.5 weeks. I did. There was some complicated sort of advice that I needed to look at, which was urgent, so I did. But otherwise, I didn't do any work at all. And when I came back, in fact, it was quite amazing. When I came back, I was expecting my inbox to be sort of flooded, but there was virtually no decisions for me to make because they'd already been made.
Yep.
So, that was a huge success, and it meant that obviously I was unplugged more fully and therefore, got some health and welfare benefits.
Yeah, because you need to recharge through that process.
Of course you do. And if you got your phone with you, you're not recharging. You're checking your emails every day. It's not the same, right? It's not the same sort of thing. Just because you go to the beach in the afternoon doesn't mean you're not thinking about work. And you can sort of, when you're checking your emails, you can sort of feel yourself filling up with the tension, So
that's when you go to the top shelf. Like, give me I need the hard stuff.
That's
not
right.
Not a cold beer. I need.
Well, that's a fair analysis too, because because you're tense, then you might drink more than otherwise you should, and then you feel rubbish, which then leads to it's a sort of a snowball effect in a negative way.
Yep.
Whereas if you can keep unplugged, then you go, well, not that I on my holiday didn't drink because I was so relaxed. That was not the case.
Probably even more so.
Yeah. But I think when you're in France, you need to partake.
But it is. Look, it's one of these topics that we kind of raise with people that you almost need to schedule in your holidays for the year.
Yep.
Lock it into your diary, and you let. I mean, you always have to let customers know if you want to be away for a period of time, but I mean, sometimes it's just then you've got to work towards. So if you know that you're coming to this position, which is all about how do I start and grow a business will grow better if you start putting some systems in place that mean that you don't have to be there.
Yeah.
Because someone else is taking on that work that you think you need to do.
Yeah.
And they're also making a decision that you think you're the only one that can make that decision.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you start taking that away, your mind can go to other areas, or you can then get very focused on the stuff that you like to do. But when you're back in the business, you're actually relaxed, rejuvenated, and enjoy it. Like, I mean, it's very easy to say all of this.
Yeah.
It is harder to execute.
Yeah.
But that is by having it top of mind.
Yep.
Especially when we talk about pitfalls in starting and growing a business.
Yes.
Not taking a holiday is a really big pitfall because that has a very detrimental effect upon yourself mentally, your team, your family. Everyone needs a break along the way.
Yeah.
And if a business is reliant upon a single person, unless you choose to be that solo business operator, but that's a different.
Yeah, well, even then, that person needs a holiday. You can have a solo business and you just say to your clients, look, we're closing down over December or whatever. I mean, that's really doable. I mean, when we would close down over December and over Christmas, but I would always be the person that if somebody had something urgent, I'd be available. And in fact, last year was probably the first year that didn't happen. Although I looked at the emails, basically anything that came in, I said, we're not doing that. Probably shouldn't say that to all my clients who are listening, but because normally the things that come in over Christmas that are urgent are not actually urgent. They're just someone's in a panic. And so, and the reality is we deserve, it was probably the first year I had the confidence to say, well, look, I deserve Christmas off. And the clients, although they're absolutely solid gold and very important to me, they can look after themselves for 5 days. That's okay. And I sort of gave myself permission.
But I think that's also one of the points when we talk about the pitfalls for starting and growing is getting to the position that you can kind of go, no,
yeah, that's right. You need to
say yes to everything.
To be able to do that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Every time you say yes, there's got to be
Yeah.
a no somewhere along the way. You cannot say yes to everything. So
Yeah.
I think as you get the confidence in your business and you narrow the people and the work that you like to do, it's really clear when you are clear on what you want to do to say no to certain work. And if you know that it's not available, you can say, well, look, we're not able to do it, but can I introduce you to someone else who may be able to do that sort of work that they prefer to do?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah. So the tips so far are do no work, take heaps of holidays, and don't be involved in your own business. Is that right? This sounds like the business of my dreams.
No, the issue is you've got to find the stuff that you love to do.
Yes. Yeah, and that you can add the most value.
Correct. You know, where absolutely you're going to add the most value because it's just, but again, I suppose the point of starting a business is the business is meant to serve you and not you serve the business.
Yeah, I love that. And that
it's
clients
set up as a structure.
Yeah, I love that. Our clients, you know, at any one stage, we might be working on for 80 clients. And I think 70 of them could learn that lesson. You know, there's probably, when I think about my client group right now, there's very few, I think, that have really taken that lesson to heart. And I think they would all benefit from that. And myself included, I think we're all somewhere along the spectrum. And I think I've tried to incorporate some of that. But I think that's really wise advice.
But there's also the other side. People are terrified. Like if you've grown and started and grown and built and done all this other stuff, there is a sense of identity.
Yeah.
Of you to your business. Like you've started it because you like doing it, and there's a passion in it, and you kind of enjoy the work.
Yeah.
So this is as you work your way through some of these and continuing to build and grow a business, is you've got to put some benchmarks in place for yourself that says, right, in 12 or 18 months' time, I want to have a month off.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
What are the steps that you need to take? And that's what I say, over that 18-month period, you might do a week. 3 months in, you might do, another week or 10 days, 6 months in. Then you might do 2.5 weeks at 12 months. And it's like, okay, we're getting there. What else again? What do we need to do? So when you come to that and you've announced that holiday is going to happen or that time away, and you can go do whatever you need to do. Like, there's no... You don't have to go away somewhere. I mean, that would be the ideal situation, but you actually checked out. You're not in contact with the office. The best way to do it is that someone in your office changes all the passwords on your email and everything else. So you've got no way of getting access to it. Yeah. But you look really important with 2 phones. You can sit there with one on each ear. Yeah, you break out in that nasty rash, don't you? It's just very uncomfortable. Yep. Yeah, you would get the upside on down the track. See, and I think it'll be interesting to see how COVID's changed that for a lot of people too, because there is this balance that. Oh, it looks like I've lost you, Alex. All right. Well, we might just close it out there. So we're going to close out the discussion today. Alex, you're back.
Sorry, yeah, I just lost you for a minute. I think it was a recording at my end. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. Just dropped you. I was about to close it out and then just turn around and say,
Oh, right.
we could. So we'll just have to keep it going. That's fine. We haven't closed it out, people. We're still going.
Still going, still here. The old internet drops out no matter what you do.
Yeah. So again. That's where it comes back to when you're starting your business. You want to make sure, and depending on who it's with, if it's with multiple owners, you want to have the agreement. What's our exit?
Yes, that's right. What's our exit? What are the rules around that? In this case, I mean, she got terminated as an employee, and if she's terminated as an employee, that leads to issues around share valuation, right? So, as in a reduced share valuation. So suddenly, all this equity that she built up is now worth less because of this termination, which I don't think she ever expected would happen. And of course, you never do. So I think another pitfall of starting a business is making sure your structure's right, making sure your partnership agreement or your shareholder agreement reflects what you expect, and that you've read it and understand it, and you understand if things go wrong, what that means. You don't want to be doom and gloom about these things, but when you go into partnership with people, marriages end in divorces and partnerships end in disputes. It's just very common. It's just part of life. So you've got to be.
Which goes back to our opening comments. When you're working inside a larger business and make the decision to want to go out on your own, it's not just about the skill or the product or the service that you wanted to offer. You've got to think about all the other stuff that comes around owning and running a business.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest thing, I think, for a lot of people. They just do not kind of get their head around the fact, or they seek, I think sometimes, I shall choose my words carefully, perhaps misguided commentary on, look, do that when it's, it's a bit bigger. Don't spend the money on setting up a company or a trust structure. Like, wait until you've proven your business model. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it gets further down, you get busy, and the next thing you know, it's been running for a couple of years. And then you go, oh, well, actually, I want to put it into this structure. Oh, well, that's not quite so easy to do.
Yeah. Actually, we just, again, yesterday I spoke to a client who had the wrong structure in place and thought he was an employee when he really was a consultant. And that means he's not covered by the insurance of the company that he's working for. And now he's facing these big claims. And on the side, he's also done some property development work with his company that's the consulting company. So that owns all this land. So it's now his whole property development project. He should have done that through a different entity, right? That's sort of accounting or legal 101, financial advice 101. If you've got a property development project, set up a new entity. But he did it all, the consulting and all of that, the risky consulting in the same entity as the property development, which is just a dumb idea, and might have saved him $1,800 in setup cost. And now he's facing these large claims, and the land's at risk. And so it's a disaster, and it's really just a sort of a failure for a bit of simple planning.
Yeah, and this is, again, as you start to grow your business, reassess the way that things are set up and structured, and should you make some changes. And so, unfortunately, sometimes you might have to pay tax in a transition to separate some assets. But if one particular area is going better than others, that's probably not a bad thing to do.
Yeah. I think a little bit of transaction cost, doesn't hurt you if it's the right structure.
It's easy to say, I'll just keep doing it, but it comes back to bite you in the end. The saving of $2,000 at the start could cost you a couple of $100,000. Or millions at the other end.
Yeah, this is millions. Organised. Bad. Yeah.
So is there anything else you want to kind of cover off for today?
No, I think they're the main things. I think, you really want to make sure you really want to be in business and what that looks like and what the personal cost is before you start. I think that's probably the biggest bit of advice that I'd give people. And I actually did just for the Chartered Practicing Accountants Association, the CPA. I did some materials, some sort of training materials for them about starting their own accounting firms, and that was my biggest bit of advice. And I think it was a bit of a shock to them. So, do you actually want to run your own accounting firm? It all sounds very good, but are you sure do you want to do the HR? Do you want to set up the computers? When the screens are broken, do you want to take them back to JB and get them fixed? That's what you have to do at the start. And is that what you want? So I think that's probably my biggest bit of advice. And then I think the stuff you were saying about scaling and about valuing your own time and taking a holiday is all gold.
Well, take advantage of being a shareholder of your own business and reap the rewards of the profit potential that sits there. So you've got to be across that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and it'll mean that you're running a better business to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, because then you might get someone to come and write your dirty big check to buy your business because it runs without you involved.
Yeah, right.
Limited involvement, but it's still a profitable business.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to close out today. I'd like to thank Alex from Taurus Legal Management. He can be contacted via LinkedIn at Alex Martin or via the website, tauruslawyers.com.au. I'd also like to thank myself, David Murdoch, the wealth activist from Paxton Bridge. I can also be contacted via LinkedIn at David Murdoch or via our website at paxtonbridge.com. Thank you once again, Alex, for a wonderful discussion, and we shall talk next time. Thanks,
See you next time.
See ya.